Hello, everyone, and this is part 5 of Polity Premier League 2025. Let's begin. First question. With reference to the functioning of parliamentary committees in India, consider the following statements. The Committee on Public Undertakings can examine the performance of a PSU only if its annual report is accompanied by a CAG audit report. Now, this statement is actually wrong because there is no such mandate or a condition to have the annual report accompanied by a CAG audit report. So, one is wrong. Number two, the departmentally related standing committees, DRSCs, or as they are called popularly DSCs, or the parliamentary committees, have the authority to summon union ministers to appear before them for oral evidence. Now, this is also wrong because there is no authority that the committees have to summon the ministers, though they can always ask for records, etc., to be kept before them. So, two is wrong. Number three, the estimates committee is mandated to suggest alternative policies to ensure efficiency in government expenditure, but its recommendations are binding on the finance ministry. Of course, the committees that you have, the parliamentary committees, the recommendations are not binding because they are not constitutional or statutory bodies. So they just give advice, right? So they are primarily advisory in nature. So 3 is also wrong. Which of the statements is or are correct? D. None of the above. Moving on to the next question. Regarding the composition and jurisdiction of financial committees in Parliament, which one of the following statements is correct? The PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, chairman must ideally be from the opposition. Absolutely correct. Since 1967, the person must ideally belong to the opposition party, even if the ruling party nominates an alternative candidate with majority support. This is actually a fair statement to make. Seems like A is the correct answer. We'll still read B, C, and D. The Estimates Committee can examine expenditure charged on the CFI, unlike the PAC, which is restricted to voted expenditure. I mean, this is not correct. So B is wrong. The Committee on Ethics is a joint committee and is chaired by the presiding officer of Rajya Sabha. No, the Committee on Ethics is actually a separate select committee. So you have a separate committee for the Rajya Sabha and a separate committee for the Lok Sabha. So C is wrong. D. The PAC is empowered to scrutinize the appropriation accounts of state governments when a CAG report is tabled in the parliament. So not for the state government accounts. D is wrong. PAC scrutinizes the appropriation accounts for the central government. Right answer is, of course, A. Moving on to the next one. The DRSCs in Parliament primarily examine the performance of PSUs. This is wrong. For the PSUs, we have a separate committee on public sector undertaking. Demand for grants of union ministries. This is actually correct. Why? Because the DRSCs do look into the demands for grants. If you remember, in the budget passage process, the stage immediately after the general discussion is the committee stage where the budget is sent to these 24 DRSCs who will then submit their reports. So B is right. The conduct of MPs is of course wrong. This is a privilege committee's task or ethics committee's task, and the CAG reports on government expenditure done by the what? Done by the Committee on Public Accounts or the PAC. So B is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. Easy and simple. The Anti-Defection Law was introduced by which amendment? We all know very well. It was introduced in 1985 with the 52nd Amendment Act, right? So, of course, B is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. With reference to the anti-defection law under the 10th schedule, consider the following statements. A member expelled from a political party is deemed to have voluntarily given up membership, attracting disqualification even if they remain independent. It's an interesting point. So, we all know very well that if you voluntarily give up membership of a party, anti-defection law will of course kick in. However, the Supreme Court on multiple occasions has said and clarified that expulsion does not trigger disqualification. If the political party expels you, you will not be disqualified until and unless you go and join some other party on your own. If you remain independent, you will not be disqualified, be it the very famous G. Vishwanath case of 1996 or even something as recent as the Amar Singh case of 2010, where Supreme Court has clarified this very point that expulsion does not trigger disqualification. Number two, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha has no jurisdiction to decide disqualification cases if the member belongs to the ruling party. Of course, this is a stupid statement. Why would there be any kind of exception for somebody belonging to the ruling party? So, which of the statements are correct? C, neither one nor two. Next question. Regarding the procedural aspects of anti-defection law, which one of the following statements is correct? The Speaker's decision on disqualification under 10th schedule is final and cannot be challenged in any court of law. So, original provision was, of course, this. However, when it comes to the procedural aspects, this has now been declared invalid by Supreme Court because Supreme Court has said in the Minerva Mills case that judicial review is a part of basic structure, and in the Kyoto Holohan case of 1992, Supreme Court struck this provision down, saying that the Speaker's decision can be challenged in the constitutional courts. A is wrong. The Supreme Court in the Keshav Meghchandra Singh case 2020 mandated that disqualification petitions must be decided within 6 months, failing which the Speaker loses jurisdiction. Oh, so this is the case with respect to Manipur, but this is also a wrong statement. Why? Because it is not 6 months but 3 months, and also the Speaker losing jurisdiction is not something that the Supreme Court said. Then C, a member cannot be disqualified for defying a party whip on a vote concerning a constitutional amendment bill under Article 368. So again, first things first, whip and the conditions for whip are not clarified anywhere in the Constitution. This is a provision that we have drawn inspiration from UK. And also, there is no such mandate that a constitutional amendment bill will have the members using their conscience vote, right? So, yes, it is very much possible that the party can issue a whip to vote in a particular direction when such bills are introduced. So, C is also wrong. D, none of the above is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements about the scope of the anti-defection law. A nominated member of the House is exempt from disqualification under the 10th schedule if they join a political party before 3 months. So it is before how many months? It is before 6 months and not 3 months. So one is wrong. Number two, the anti-defection law applies to independent members who join a political party post-election. Yes, this is absolutely correct. So in this case, right answer is B2 only. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding the first past the post system of elections in India. In this system, each constituency elects one representative. This is, of course, correct. This is the provision under the first past the post. And number two, the winning candidate in the system must secure more than 50% votes is wrong. In such a system, the winning candidate must get the maximum votes, right? So, incorrect statement. Right answer is B2 only. Moving on to the next one. With reference to the Anti-Defection Law under the 10th schedule, consider the following statements. A member of a state legislature can be disqualified for voluntarily giving up membership of the party, even if they do not join another party. Is that correct? Yes, of course. It does not really matter whether you join some other party or not. The moment you voluntarily give up the membership of your party, you are disqualified, of course, based on the decision of the speaker and the information by the members of the House to the speaker or the party to the speaker. Second one, the Supreme Court in the Subhash Desai case ruled that the Speaker's authority to decide on cases of disqualification must be transferred to ECI with immediate effect. Now, this is actually wrong. In the Subhash Desai case, Supreme Court did give a suggestion, such authority of the presiding officer, the speakers, to decide on anti-defection laws should ideally be transferred to an independent body, say a tribunal. But this was not a judgment or an order. So 2 is incorrect, 1 is correct. Incorrect statements, B2 only. Next question. Regarding the functioning of parliamentary committees in India, consider the following statements. The PAC is a select committee as it comprises of members from only Lok Sabha. Select committee, of course. See, as far as PAC is concerned, PAC is a joint committee, 15 MPs from Lok Sabha, 7 from Rajya Sabha. Though initially PAC was a select committee till 1954, but beyond that, we also had the entry of members from Rajya Sabha in the PAC. This is wrong. The DRSCs are reconstituted every 5 years. No, every 1 year following the general election to the Lok Sabha. So 2 is also wrong. Correct statements, D, neither 1 nor 2. Next question. Consider the following statements about the privileges of Parliament under Article 105 and 194 of the Constitution. Neither House of Parliament nor any of its committees may be questioned in any court as to any matter coming before it in the Parliament. This is absolutely correct. The parliamentary privileges. No member of parliament has immunity from court proceedings for defamatory remarks made in the course of parliamentary proceedings. No, this is wrong. In fact, they do have immunity in the court proceedings. However, the House, the presiding officers, can of course take an action against the members. Number 3, Parliament has the power to punish for contempt of itself, but not for breach of privilege. This is also wrong. The Parliament has the power to punish for both contempt of itself as well as breach of privilege by initiating what is called a privilege motion. So 3 is wrong. Statement being correct, A1 only, which is the right answer. Next question. Which of the following powers is exclusive to the Lok Sabha and not enjoyed by the Rajya Sabha or its chairman? So deciding whether a bill is a money bill under Article 110, this is a power of Lok Sabha, yes. Initiating a motion of NCM, no confidence against the Council of Ministers, yes, this is also the power of Lok Sabha. Allowing an adjournment motion subject to fulfillment of required conditions, yes, like say the notice being issued by 50 MPs. So all of the above are special powers of the Lok Sabha. Next question. This is a question on privilege motion. So, which of these is not a requirement for a member of parliament to move a privilege motion? The motion must deal with a breach of privilege of the House or one of its members. Of course, this is correct. We have to find out, not a requirement. It must be given in writing before the Secretary General. Yes, of course, before 10 a.m. on that day, you have to give this in writing. And admitted by the speaker or chairman, yes, of course. So speaker, there is this Lok Sabha rule number 233, and for the chairperson, the Rajya Sabha rule number 188, I believe, right? So of course this is correct. It must be moved within 30 days of the alleged breach. Now there is no such time frame mentioned, though it should be of a recent event, but there is no exact 30-day time frame mentioned, so this is actually incorrect. If admitted, it is referred to the Committee of Privileges, is of course correct. So C being the right answer. Next question, with reference to the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, consider the following statements or consider these statements. The LOP must be the leader of the single largest party in the opposition with not less than 10% of the total seats in the House. Yes, correct. The first part and the second part, the Mavlanka rule, both of them are correct. The recognition of the leader of opposition is a prerogative of the president. No, it is the prerogative of the presiding officer, of course, apart from meeting the basic criteria. Number three, the LOP is consulted by the president on appointments to joint parliamentary committees. This is, of course, nonsense. Correct statement. A1 only. And the last question for today. Which of the following correctly distinguishes a vote on account from the interim budget? A vote on account grants the government authority to withdraw money from the CFI or consolidated fund for a part of the year. An interim budget presents full revenue and expenditure proposals. Yes, this is correct. Vote on account, if you remember, this is just 2 months advanced expenditure, 1/6 of the total budgetary demand. A vote on account does not require a separate appropriation act. An interim budget does. No. A vote on account also requires a separate act. We usually call that an appropriation vote on account act. This one is passed to allow for vote on account. So 2 is wrong. A vote on account can be moved at any point of time or any time. An interim budget can only be moved before general elections. Now see, if you refer to, say, Article 116 for that matter, there is no such criteria, or Article 116, I would say, does not prohibit the use of, say, vote on account or even the interim budget. There is no constitutional or procedural restriction preventing the use of, say, interim budget before any kind of scenario like, say, mid-year government transition that might take place, etc. Right? So the idea being that interim budgets can only be moved before elections, no. This might not be an accurate statement, though yes, ideally, interim budgets are budgets presented during the election year. However, they can be moved at any other point of time also, right? And yes, again, vote on account ideally is moved in the budget session. But again, as I said, Article 116 does not prohibit its use at other times if, say, urgent expenditure is needed. So 3 is also wrong. This means the right answer is A1 only. And this brings us to an end of our discussion for today. Let's meet in the next part. Till then, that is all for me. Jai Hind.